All right, so your review today, there's 3 types of questions. The first type of question is what we started with. Well, I actually don't have these in any certain order. Just make sure when you read it, it says find the maximum height the rocket will reach. And so you have 3 different options to choose from. So if it's asking us what the maximum height will be, that means you're finding the y of your vertex. So a rocket is launched from a tower. If this was to be drawn or graphed, I don't know. So it's graphed. This is the height of the tower. It graphs, it goes up, and then at some point it has to start coming down because of gravity. So use the equation to find the maximum height reached by the rocket. That will be your vertex up here. That's up here is your maximum height. That's your maximum height. So we have time here, and then you have height over here. So x will give you your time. X will give you your time, but what it wants to know is your height. So we need to know the y at that point. Y gives you your height, x gives you your time. So we're trying to find the vertex. And so to find the vertex, you have to find x of the vertex using x equals negative b over 2a. And then we plug that into our equation. So a is always the number in front of x squared, b is always the number in front of x, and c is the number by itself. So a is negative 16, b is 136, and c is 57. And you're plugging that in to find the x of the vertex. So when will it reach its maximum height? Negative b over 2a. So negative 136 over 2, and our a is negative 16. And you just put all that into a calculator. Max is the y value. That's this one too. This one says that. So I'm going to go to our Desmos, into the calculator. See if I can make it a little. There we go. And so I'll plug that in. So negative 136 divided by the whole bottom. So make sure the 2 stays on the bottom with the negative 16. So make sure that negative 16 does not go out to the side. But that's 4.25. So if you were to look at your graph, that is when 4.25 is when it reaches its maximum height. But this question asks, what is the maximum height? So this is, x is always time in these questions, and y is your height. So we're solving for y at this time. So you plug in the x you found, 4.25, into your equation to find the y. Here's my equation. Anytime I see x, I'm plugging in 4.25. X, 4.25, plus 57. And we plug all of this into the calculator. Negative 16, 4.25 squared plus 136, 4.25 plus 57. Make sure I didn't mess up anywhere. 346. So 346 feet. And it says round to the nearest 10th. 10th place is the place after the decimal, and this doesn't even have decimals, so you don't have to worry about rounding in this one. That question would just be 346. So that that is saying find the maximum height. So just to review, if you're finding the maximum height, that is the y of your vertex, the y of the maximum. So first you have to find the x of the maximum, your vertex, and plug it into your equation to find the y. But this question can get a little easier if it asks just what is the time it reaches the maximum. The when. Time is when. So this is, if it's asking when, then all you have to do is find the x of your vertex. So this is the quickest question out of the three of them. So x equals b, negative b over 2a. So x equals negative 235 over 2a is negative 16. And then you just plug that in. The only way you can mess this one up really is if the negative 16 comes out of the denominator, or if you round wrong. Sometimes when people type it in, especially depending on what calculator you use, you might have the negative 16 out here, and just know that's wrong. That's not our answer. The negative 16 has to be underneath with the 2. So just make sure when you're typing it, you're checking that everything's right. Make sure you're not getting a negative answer either, because we're not talking about negative time. That doesn't make sense. So 7.3437. 7.3437. Round to the nearest 100th. Remember your decimal places. The 100th is the second decimal place. So you need to end this decimal here. So we need to get rid of 37. We just need to know, is it going to stay a 4 or go up to a 5? So it's got to be 7.3, and this needs to be our last number. So looking at the 3 after in the 1000th place, since it is a low number, below 5, it's going to stay a 4. If it was 5 or higher, it would round up to a 5. So 7.34 seconds. And that's it for that question. You don't have to go back and plug this in. This is when it will reach its maximum height. All right, the last type of question is kind of the longest, but it's what we were practicing the most. It's find when the rocket will hit the ground. So when will the rocket hit the ground? Your rocket's going to go up off of the tower, and then it's going to come back and hit the ground. That's this top steps. That means we're solving for x when y equals 0. And to do that, you set your equation equal to 0. And then solve. You can solve by factoring or the quadratic formula on this one. I've seen most people using the quadratic formula. I don't know if it can be factored, but let's use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, let me write the quadratic formula just so you have it. Opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm putting everything in parentheses so that when you go to plug in your answers, you put everything in parentheses. 247 squared minus 4a is negative 16, c is 141. All over 2a is negative 16. All right, remember when you're solving the quadratic formula, I want you to first do what's underneath the radical. These steps is what make you mess up the least. So what's under the radical goes first in your calculator. 247 squared minus 4 times negative 16. And you get 70,033. 70033. We still have to take the square root of that number. And 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. So first step, under the radical. Second step, the radical itself. And in your calculator now, I'm going to take the square root of that number. Some students are doing that in one step, and that is okay. If that's easy for you, you can. I'm going to do 264.64. 264.64 over negative 32. All right, you have the plus version, positive, and the negative version. And you put both of those in the calculator. So that's what plus or minus means. Plus, you have two different answers here. Once when this is a plus, and once when this is a minus. And you have to know both. Divide, make sure that you're dividing the whole top. See how I put that in parentheses? I get a negative number, negative 0.55. And then I do it again. For the minus. I get a positive number, and the positive number is your answer, 15.9988. 15.9988. Because this is talking about time. You're not going to have a negative time. The rocket did not hit the ground negative a half a second ago. That does not make sense. The rocket did not hit the ground negative half a second ago. That was before the rocket was even launched. That was when it was on the ground here. It still had to go up the tower before it was launched. So it hit the ground after 15.99 seconds. But they want us to round to the nearest 100th. And remember, your nearest 100th. Come on, work for me. Nearest 100th is the second decimal place. And I still have people having trouble with the rounding. So the second decimal place is right here. But looking at the 8, that's going to round it up 1. So that 9 is actually going to become a 10. And that 10 has to make the 1 go to the 9. And again, that 9 is going to become a 10. So that 10 is going to make it go up to the 1. So it's going to be 16 seconds. And just like money, it doesn't matter what's going on after the decimal if there's zeros. 0.00, this is still 16 seconds. You don't have to write 0.00. It's not wrong if you do. It's just not changing anything. So there is that answer. So 16 seconds. So those are the 3 types of problems you'll come across. If you have any questions, please let me know. You got a test on this tomorrow.